Hello everyone, I am Minidroit, and today I'll be checking out Neon Knights. Neon Knights is an extensive roguelike game following a character named... whatever you name them, as they navigate through the desolate walls. While I usually don't play roguelites, Neon Knights is a special fusion of RPG storyline and roguelike gameplay, and this combination piqued my interest. I think it's pretty clear that I like RPGs, so I was sure that I like Neon Knights, especially since it was endorsed by Roblox in a promotional video. And with the approval of Roblox themselves, this has to be a high quality game. So enough elucidation, let's get into the game. What a great intro. It's short, tense, and impactful. Starting a new game, you're greeted with some esoteric text and a character creation screen. While the clothing and customization options are pretty limited, it's great that developers let you design your character. It makes the game feel more personal. You even get to name your character. Let's see here. Painful Desolation. Yeah, that works. In a daydream, the walls beckon you and reassure you as you begin your journey. Which, you know, is more than some can say about their dads. So, you wake up in a train after being called by the walls. And you're assigned protagonist. And it starts in media res. Hold on, wait a minute. Isn't this just an intro to Half-Life 2? Cyphus, the veteran guiding you, warns you of the station's hostility and alludes to a rogue robot takeover of Diamond City's outskirts. So that's a pretty cool lore building. After Cyphus fails to open a gate due to his osteoporosis, you're ordered to find another way into the city and... Huh. Interesting. After the split between you and your group, you enter the combat tutorial. It's probably one of the best tutorials I've played in a while. The developers take the Valve approach to teaching by organically introducing the game's mechanics without excessive hand-holding. And developers pull it off pretty well. As you try to reach your allies, you have to dodge environmental hazards, open corridors, and bash enemy heads in with your foot. I thoroughly enjoyed this tutorial. It introduced me to the basic mechanics of the game in a succinct and engaging sequence. So, you find Cockroach and immediately entrust you with Cyphus' gun. Then, you blast your next wave of enemies with it. Here, you're introduced to the concept of enemy weak spots, where you do extra damage if you shoot them in certain places. After fighting Cyphus, you're thrown to a boss battle and get to test your newfound skills. I genuinely did not expect the tutorial to end with a boss fight, but I'm glad it did since it introduces you to the general structure of Neon Knights regions. Speaking of, let's talk about Neon Knights gameplay. Typical of all roguelites, Neon Knights separates its levels into multiple interconnected rooms where you fight different types of enemies. Each region starts with an item collecting room or rest stop where you're given a new weapon to use for the run. While these items are usually low tier, I still appreciate the game offering you free items every run. The only stipulation is that you have to beat the region to keep the item, but that's a reasonable condition since it encourages the player to finish rounds. Usually, you go through 5 or 6 rooms before you reach the region's boss, and those rooms are a typical roguelite affair. Running, gunning, dashing, swording. Neon Knights incorporates these combat mechanics effortlessly. You generally feel cool while fighting enemies, and it's super rewarding to clear a room. Like, come on, tell me this isn't cool.
Well, it wasn't.
Shut up, Red. No one was asking you. Enemies drop experience capsules and money to aid your run, and munitions are purchased from vending machines or found in crates. Also, can I just say how much I love the aesthetic of these vendors? Moving through the first region, you stumble across a humble ramen shop run by this beautiful maiden named Phi, and the atmosphere here is amazing. You're able to buy items that help you during your run and they have cute icons. And further on in the game, you come across Melco stations that just ooze of personality. I love it. Oh yeah, remember those experience capsules I was talking about earlier? They're actually critical for the game's skill tree. Yep, every level you earn, you get to invest in skills that will aid you during your runs. There are 4 principal branches in the skill tree: Physique, Wealth, Vitality, and Utility. This skill tree reminds me of another amazing Roblox game with a leveling system. Entry point. Neon Knight's skill system is extremely well developed, and I applaud developers for incentivizing players to complete stages through this experience system. Now, one caveat, while I've been praising Neon Knight's gameplay, I will say that there's a pretty big difficulty spike past the second region. Now, granted, I've only played this game solo. I'm sure I play this game with others would make the game easier. but in my experience as a solo player, the third region's really hard to beat without revives. I've yet to reach the region's boss, so most of my commentary on the regions beyond Yaramo Transit will be preliminary. However, I believe that the first two regions sufficiently represent Neonite's core gameplay. Speaking of, let's talk about the game's first region. I love the Outer Walls. It's a perfect introduction to Neonite's gameplay and lore. The main enemies of this region are disheveled robots that call back to the game's opening. The Outer Walls brilliantly continues the game's story and gameplay through familiar characters. Ingenious. It also has my favorite rest stop character, Fi. She's a humble and reclusive ramen shop owner and I love the stop's cozy vibe. More important than Fi though is the region's boss, the Constructor. It's pretty good. I don't really have much to say about it, but it was a fun fight. The Outer Walls are amazing. They're a 10 out of 10. Yaramo Transit is a pretty decent follow-up, though it's definitely harder than the previous section and less beginner friendly. But it's not too bad. You're introduced to new enemy types and they're really interesting mechanically. The most common enemies you'll encounter are cyborg dogs that lay dormant until you approach them. This slight delay in their activity makes them easier to fight since you can limit them before they retaliate. Curb stomp them! Another interesting enemy that you encounter is a perpetually pissed off cube that dashes at you and tries to jump you. Combo for curb stomping is dogs, I guess. The closest outer wall analog to his enemies is medium-sized guy with a hammer. They don't have canon names, okay? Man, screw geometry anyway. And of course, how can I forget about this fella? Yeah, you all know Shite Yanyo? Yeah, this guy's the physical embodiment of that meme but as a side character. Oh, and actual mites. These are the worst enemies in the game. Kill them with pesticide or something. More interesting than common enemies are the environmental hazards that hinder your progress. In almost every room, there are pillars that hurt you if you stand near them for too long. This actually caught me off guard during my first playthrough because I didn't expect there to be hidden enemies. This region's rest stop is run by Moko, an AI vendor who sponsors your runs and is not legally liable for any food poisoning caused by most snacks. I don't think they're as useful as what Fi sells to you, but they're still nice to haves. I also really like how desperate each item's descriptions are. It's really charming. I don't like the region's final boss though. The region's final boss takes place on a single rail, and this really restricts your movement. My favorite thing about the game is the player's mobility, so having this boss battle on a narrow track really takes away from the experience for me. Sure, it's unique, but it's not great. The boss itself is pretty boring too. It doesn't move much, its only attacks aside from summoning other enemies are launching projectiles at the track, slamming into the ground, and committing terrorism. Not terrible, but not as impressive as the first boss. So, this region's like an 8 out of 10 for me. A decent follow-up region, but not that impressive. Vertigo High Rise is the first I've been in the game, and I'm a bit conflicted about it, but I'll delve further into that later. Vertigo High Rise consists of multiple isolated buildings that you jump between and fight enemies on. I kind of like this design. It's certainly unique and diversifies the gameplay of Neon Knights. Also, it's kind of fun to jump between platforms. Whee! It's important to note that there are platforms that can give you buffs and deal environmental damage, adding another level of depth to the gameplay experience. Though, when it comes to the region's enemies, that's when pressing issues arise. This is the first time in the game where I felt extremely underpowered compared to my enemies. Just look at this one clip. I'm being swarmed by flies, shot out by a dozen projectiles, forced to dodge a laser that spans across the entire map, and being shown literal ads. Do you expect me to survive this? I'm not a fan of the enemies in this region as well. The grunts that you encounter bombard you with a dozen projectiles that lock onto you, and the only way that you can counter them is by constantly moving and killing them. It's kind of annoying to have to fight multiple of these guys during a level. I'm not a fan of these laser guys either. They're pretty easy to dodge alone, but they totally decimate you when paired with other enemies. While there are other challenging enemies in Vertigo High Rise, there's one enemy for this region that I absolutely loathe. This thing. This is Satan's reincarnate. It cannot do any direct damage to you. Instead, it's another squammer flies to kill you and actively avoid confrontation. Maybe it's just my melee heavy playstyle, but dealing with this guy and his pest was always annoying. Even more annoying when they were invisible for no reason. Yeah, I've heard about that enemies can randomly become invisible in some rooms because dealing with a horde of enemies wasn't hard enough. Come on guys. Really? The guy who bombarded you with Moko ads was pretty charming though, even if they are very annoying. What Vertigo High Rise uses in gameplay, it massively makes up for with its story and characters. I mentioned how I like the Outer Walls characters, but Vertigo High Rise takes it to the next level. Remember Fi? Yeah, she doesn't return. I don't really know why I mentioned her. But Kimmy is one of the cutest characters in the game. She's the idol of Vertigo High-Rise and has clearly been isolated from the rest of society as her English is rudimentary, but like, who cares? She's cute. You also meet the doctor shortly afterwards. No, not Dre. Not him either. This guy's a peaceful robot who's been caring for Kimmy. He subverts the player's expectations by being a peaceful and collected robot, contrasting the numerous enemies that we've encountered along the way. He also sells you stuff, and these are god tier items. 5 seconds of immunity, an extra stamina charge, health regeneration. These are some of the best items in the game. Sorry, Fi. I really liked Vertigo High-Rise's characters and aesthetic. However, its gameplay and enemy overload really put me off, and the region isn't just about its aesthetics. So, Vertigo High-Rise gets a 7 out of 10 for me. I probably wouldn't change the region too much aside from reducing the number of enemies per level and adding more Kimmy. Anyway, remember how I said that this was the first I've been in the game? Yeah, I lied. Midnight Lounge time. Now, usually, you expect the region to be harder and more convoluted than the previous one, right? Throw it out the window. Midnight Lounge fortunately subverts that expectation by having you fight a series of mini-bosses. This is a great contrast to the bloated and hyperactive battles of Vertigo High-Rise, and I like this change of pace. Now, I haven't finished this region since the bosses are really hard, but I have some general thoughts about it. The first mini-boss is great. He's a cast-iron robot that wields multiple floating shields to protect itself. His primary attack is butt slamming into you, and it kinda reminds me of Mine from Blue Archive. Next boss is a really cool samurai who wields a gun sword hybrid and can become invisible. While I complained about invisibility in the previous region, I found how the boss can become invisible during the fight as there's a mark that always reveals his position. This was a tough boss, but I barely managed to scrape by. Those are some pretty challenging bosses, but they pale in comparison to the third boss. Yeah, this is where the game goes from hard but fair to... Was I supposed to survive that? No, really. How fair was that? This is the point of the game where the graphics and aesthetic choices of the battle severely hinder the player's ability to react to attacks. But hey, it's a roguelite where your job is to dodge attacks, so I guess it couldn't have made it too easy. Still, I didn't like this boss. A lot of the hits I took didn't seem fair to me, and I toiled during it. After a short intermission at a house meeting that I couldn't use because I didn't have any money, you fight the region's final boss, a 3-armed soldier who wields a sword and a bow. This is a really cool boss, but it's also pretty hard to beat, which is understandable because it's the region's final boss. I haven't beaten him yet, but I liked fighting him. And that's all for the base game. But Neon Knights is more than its regions. The developers have gone above and beyond with the game, especially with the NPCs, to bring so much life to the game. I, clearly have a favorite. Bataki is a pretty funny apartment manager who gives you encouragement and tells you jokes like... Unfortunately, I've gotten every single interaction with Taki when I wasn't recording and I have no footage of him joking with me. And no game would be complete without a creepy old person who tells you esoteric messages. Yeah, I don't know why, but I feel like she'll tell me it's dangerous to go alone and give me something. Stop rubbing it in, Grandma! You know I don't have friends! Stein's a pretty chill weapons dealer, and he's definitely not just a Markiplier in a jacket. Yeah, definitely. I haven't had any interesting interactions with him, but I kind of like his perpetually tired vibe. I'll be 100% honest with you all. I don't go anywhere near the game's clothing store, so I have literally nothing to say about Era. Now, I've definitely met the woman managing the forge, and yeah, let's move along. One of my favorite interactions in the hub is knocking on an inconspicuous door and getting insulted by some holier-than-thou neat who speaks weird. I'm not a real knight? Oh yeah? Why would you this outside then, huh? All jokes aside, I love these characters. They just ooze personality and elevate the gameplay experience. Neon Knights NPCs make the world feel lived in and well loved, and that's amazing. So, that's all to say about Neon Knights. Back to you, Minidroit. Oh, we're back to me. Well, everyone, that was a video on Neon Knights. If you couldn't tell, I really like this game. I usually try to review games that are multifaceted and slightly flawed to make a more interesting video, but Neon Knights is one of the best games on the platform. I loved its lively environments and precise gameplay. It's one of the best roguelikes I've played. Granted, I've only played Neon Knights, but still. I love the game's progression, atmosphere, characters, gameplay, Fi. I haven't played a game that I've enjoyed this much since, well, Earthbound. And that's heavy praise, okay? Neon Knights gets a 10 out of 10 from me. This sets the standard for high quality games on Roblox. Bravo, Blockage. Y'all did well with it. And that's all for this video. Goodbye, all.